It is my honor to recognize all of the contributions staff, partners, advocates, community members have made to create and maintain this national park and make it one of the most visited in the country. First, I'm going to read a land acknowledgement. We are standing in the traditional territory of the Yelamu, a local tribe of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. The Yelamu understood the interconnectedness of all things and maintained harmony with nature for millennia. Beginning in the 18th century, Spanish, Mexican, and American colonization displaced and eradicated native peoples across California, including the Yelamu. However, a few other Ramaytush Ohlone families did survive. Today, they maintain a strong cultural and spiritual connection to their ancestral homeland, seeking to fulfill their responsibilities as stewards. Let this land acknowledgement stand as a commitment to honoring the original peoples of this land and to uncovering the truths of the past that shape our present and future. The reason Golden Gate National Recreation Area is called an urban national park is because we are in the backyard of millions of people who call the San Francisco Bay Area home. For the person lounging at Stinson Beach, or hiking in the Marin Headlands, or walking their dog at Crissy Field, it might be difficult to imagine how different our parklands looked before 1972. Citizen-led advocacy is responsible for the creation of Golden Gate National Recreation Area and is why we call it a park for the people. We will hear this morning from Amy Meyer, one of the leaders of those organizing efforts in the 1960s and 70s. Of course, after Golden Gate National Recreation Area was founded in 1972, it would still take years for the thousands of acres of former military land to be converted into space for public recreation. For decades, our partners at the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, the Presidio Trust, and business and nonprofit groups such as the YMCA of San Francisco have collaborated to provide stewardship to the park and offer services and programs to engage with visitors in unique and meaningful ways. We will hear this morning from Chris Leonards of the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy and Chuck Collins of the YMCA of San Francisco as they share their personal connection to Golden Gate National Recreation Area. As the park expanded to include sites elsewhere in San Francisco and Marin counties, and then later in San Mateo County, the cooperation of our government partners was critical in engaging the community and planning for a shared vision of the future for our parklands. We would like to thank Congressman Jared Huffman, whose district includes Marin County, for his partnership and attendance today. He will share some remarks about the park shortly. A big thank you as well to Mayor London Breed and all of the staff from the City of San Francisco for their coordination with our staff as well. We would also like to extend our deepest appreciation to Speaker Nancy Pelosi for her tireless work in making possible our collective dream for Golden Gate National Recreation Area and the Presidio. We will hear from her near the end of our program this morning. I'd also like to recognize a few people. First of all, National Park Service Regional Director Frank Lands is here with us today. Sarah Crow from Senator Dianne Feinstein's office, and Nicholas Hargis from Congresswoman Eshu's office. And thank you, Congresswoman Eshu, for the certificate of congressional recognition that you have sent. Lastly, thank you all for spending time with us today. While today is a celebration, it is also an opportunity for each of us to recommit to providing a national park experience to a large and diverse population that is welcoming to all and inspires community members to become park advocates for the future. Our first speaker this morning is Chris Leonards, the President and CEO of the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy.
Thank you, Ranger Shifsky. What a great day you've brought to the park. It's glorious. Well, it's wonderful to see all of you and have the opportunity to thank you personally for the work that you have done, are doing, and will do to protect these lands and preserve these beautiful stories that we share. You provide not only stewardship to the lands, but experiences to the visitors. GGNRA, as David said, is among the most visited national parks in the country, and what is that more than opportunity? As the current CEO of the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy, and formerly, briefly, the superintendent of this park, I've been able to see many sides of this equation. Through the years, I know that among national parks in the world, with great confidence, I can say that this is the park that leads in using partnerships to deliver its mission. China looks to this park for how to partner in delivering a mission of the Chinese national park system. Other countries look to this park because of the partnerships. The mission of the National Park Service in around the mid-90s, I would say, was updated. And it was updated to the consternation of some of the old dogs in the National Park Service. They added to the mission statement, which really, truly did rattle some people, the idea that partners were as important in the mission as the National Park Service. It was a go-it-alone strategy for many years in the National Park Service, with deep roots in the cavalry and in places that were enforcement-oriented, protection-oriented, maybe not quite as much visitor-oriented. With the addition of partners to the equation, we made something different. And that happened because of the partnerships established in this park. There is a direct line between the change in the mission. Today, the mission of the National Park Service reads, "The National Park Service preserves unimpaired the natural and cultural resources and values of the national park system for the enjoyment, education, and inspiration of this and future generations, and the Park Service cooperates with partners to extend the benefits of natural and cultural resource conservation and outdoor recreation throughout this country and the world." So I want to give a big round of appreciation to all those partners fulfilling the mission of the National Park System. Here at the GGNRA, 82,000 acres of parks in an urban setting, protecting that is no small job. And to the National Park Service, you are doing it really, really well. Congratulations to everyone in a green and gray uniform or with a Park Service badge on. Whether you're here with us today or your colleagues are away, please pass on our congratulations. On behalf of the dozens and dozens of national park partners, I want to congratulate you, I want to celebrate you, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to make this park possible for everyone for all time. Also, a quick shout out to our friends at the Presidio Trust, the National Park Service's newest addition of 14 glorious acres of national park lands. You can't throw a stone, but you can see it from here. It is an extraordinary addition. If you haven't been, you should go. And congratulations to the Presidio Trust for this amazing place that many people will forever call their backyard. The last couple of years have given us a renewed appreciation for parks and the outdoors, and the GGNRA is a testament to our collective work in making these spaces open and accessible to people of all backgrounds, beliefs, and fortitude. More people are visiting our park for the first time, and we look forward to the next 50 years as we recommit ourselves not just to supporting people in feeling welcome, but also inviting them to be ambassadors and forever partners of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Congratulations.
Thank you, Chris. Our next speaker is Chuck Collins, the President Emeritus of the YMCA of San Francisco.
Thank you, Ranger Shifsky and Ranger Strickfaden, for this opportunity. And good morning. What a beautiful morning. In 1972, congressional leaders created what has become the largest urban park in our country. Just 5 years later, in 1977, 45 years ago, the YMCA began programs at Point Bonita in the former quarters of the Nike missile site. You can see it right across the bay. In 1997, the Y returned to the main post gym, the Letterman Pool, with the Presidio Trust. Thank you very much. And if there's one vision, one big idea, one hope that has focused us over these 50 years, perhaps it's advancing park equity for all, with the themes of green space, climate, health equity, and racial justice. Over these years, we've developed a broad range of public and private and philanthropic partnerships. Among them, at the host of the National Park Service and the Presidio Trust and the Conservancy have been the Children in Nature Collaborative, our Unified School District, our Department of Children, Youth, and Families, our Department of Recreation and Parks, and so many more. We all depend on that cooperative spirit that Chris was talking about. And these programs have really led over these years to a broadening of teen leadership, of overnight camping and day camping, Y Rangers with the Department of the Interior and the National League of Cities, outdoor education, wellness, and leadership, out of school time for children, outdoor education, and our Earth Service Corps. And on an annual basis, these programs alone bring 20,000 visitors to this park across a broadening demographic, relying on your cooperation, substantial financial assistance, learning deep accessibility in all ways that matters. It is fundamental for our future to promote a positive relationship with the outdoors and our national cultural resources, giving life to American stories and to our American heritage by increasing who is represented in those narratives and histories. In programs that cooperatively we've put together, we use that as a benchmark for how we make our parks active in making people healthy. And stronger communities happen through shared experiences. Women's retreats that we have and conferences and other retreats, volunteerism and the depth of that are just little glimpses into how it is that we share our work. And it is our mutual responsibility that all generations feel a strong sense of ownership and belonging to our national parks. And what does this look like today? So I'm going to give you two stories. One is because of the deep partnership that we have with the National Park Service, the YMCA was awarded resources to increase outdoor equity programs. This comes to us to empower through environmental education and recreational programming two of the most under-resourced communities in San Francisco. That's Chinatown and the Bayview. It's targeted work in a population that needs really deep partnership. And so we will, over these many years, improve outcomes with specificity around how it is that we engage in these communities that really need a broad reach. Each community, each generation must have these opportunities so that we can sustain our role in fostering fair and equitable access. Mine is also a personal story about park equity for all. My parents came to San Francisco in the 1940s. They were a part of the great migration of black people who came to San Francisco and the Bay Area as a part of winning World War II. Growing up in San Francisco meant visiting our relatives in the South and in other parts of the country. But this also meant traveling by car with 4 boys and a dog and parents, but from here, there, and back. In the 1950s, public accommodations along our national highway system were segregated. In other words, we couldn't stay in hotels and motels along the way. But our national parks became our refuge. Where the motels had no vacancy signs, our national parks had open doors and open gates. And these experiences cemented in me my deep and lasting sense of place in the natural world, but also my deep and abiding faith in our parks. Our grandson, Mosi, was 2 years old at the beginning of the pandemic. His parents centered his days in the Presidio, along Crissy Field, Mountain Lake Park, the golf course, and Rodeo Beach. He learned about weather and tides and trails, and he discovered places that were marked on maps distributed throughout the parks. And what you could imagine now was that my grandson's life was becoming a reality shaped around what you have made in terms of opportunity. And during this time, a 2-year-old became a 4-year-old, spending most of his daytime in our natural world. His access to our public areas made the difference in who he is today, what he values, and what he notices. He has been shaped by learning and playing in our parks and along our seashores, and his 1-year-old little brother is on a similar path. Last summer, Mosi was a camper at our Stonestown and Presidio YMCA programs, something that makes me immensely grateful for the partnerships and collaborations that you make possible. A few weeks ago, he was at the National Maritime Museum and Aquatic Park and was given a map to discover certain places with his grandmother, Leela. When he finished, he turned the map in to the park ranger, and Mosi was given a badge that designated him as a junior park ranger. So beginning his life's journey as a toddler, and next as a camper and now as a junior park ranger, have helped to shape his identity as belonging in the natural world. And this is what you do collectively with so many children and so many people as an outcome of your vision and leadership. This is how you bring to life this one vision, this one big idea, this one hope that has focused us over these 50 years, advancing park equity for all, for the next 50 years and beyond. And what lies ahead will be the product of how we prepare our children now for the futures they will face. If we endow each child with a deep appreciation and understanding of our natural world, each of their small actions will contribute to ensuring that we can live in harmony and justice on this beautiful blue planet. So thank you for allowing me these stories and also to stand before you with the immense gratitude that I have for what you have made for so many people with a positive future in mind. Good morning.
Thank you, Chuck. Our next speaker is our very own park ranger, Eric Cortez.
Buenos días, yo soy Eric Cortés, soy un guardabosque con el Servicio de los Parques Nacionales, trabajo en la área del Presidio y Fortín La Punta. Good morning, folks. My name is Eric Cortés. I'm a park ranger. I'm the lead park ranger within the Presidio 4-point area of Golden Gate National Recreation Area. And I'm here because, like, Golden Gate, I love it. You know, it's amazing. You all are here. You've been here multiple times. It has a distinct history. It has distinct resources, but to me, the most important thing are the diversity within the community members and the diversity within the staff. And like, I'm gonna tell you a little bit about myself. It started when I was an intern. 5 years ago, I actually left the amazing city of Los Angeles, and I came into an area that I've never been here before. I was an education intern with a lot of great mentors that believed in me. Because at that point in time, I didn't think I could be a park ranger. I didn't see any park rangers who looked like me in all the times I went to national parks. And they believed in me. And I don't know if you can tell, but I became a park ranger, you know. And I've been with the park for almost 5 years. And these honestly have been some of the best 5 years of my life. I found my partner, you know, I've leveled up, evolved, you know. And that's one of the things I love about Golden Gate National Recreation Area. that it gives the resources to empower and uplift people. And I'm one of the best examples of that. As I started out as an intern, now I'm lead park ranger. I don't know what I'm going to be in the future, you know, just stay tuned, follow my Instagram. And as a bilingual park ranger who works with community, like I know firsthand, like the value of empowering people, you know. People empowered me. And it's so beautiful to see someone who has no confidence in themselves, the ability to like, oh, this is your national park, and see them come back over and over again after just one interaction. It's something so beautiful. And the ability to speak their language, you cannot measure that. Like the trust that creates, it's beautiful. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. You know, I do a lot of Spanish programming, and I've been corrected almost every single one of those times. And the community loves correcting a park ranger. So, to me, building community is important both in my personal and in my professional life. And it's important with the team that I work with. My direct team and all of GOGA is Golden Gate National Recreation Area as well. And we know that effective planning happens when decisions are made for people, by the people. So with that, folks, thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Great job, Eric. Thank you so much. And our next speaker this morning is our very dear community advocate and park founder, Amy Meyer.
Thank you.
You're good?
Okay.
All right.
Thank you all. Thank you very much. This park, Golden Gate National Recreation Area, actually began 150 years ago because for 100 years, people in this area admiring it and loving Mount Tamalpais, Muir Woods, Ocean Beach, the outside lands, set these lands aside so that they would be here for public use and enjoyment. And when I came to this with my mentor, Ed Wayburn, Dr. Edgar Wayburn, who was an experienced man with land saving, we had this to work from. And when John Jacobs of Spur said, we can pull this all together, and Ed said, we can pull a lot more together. And so a government idea that had started at 4,000 acres when the Army was realizing it was going to have to leave the Golden Gate because you couldn't defend the United States with the equipment they had stationed here. And the Park Service was also looking in that administration, interestingly enough, a very bipartisan activity that Philip Burton, the wonderful fire-eating Philip Burton, and the man whose district most of this park is in San Francisco and in Marin, it's all in the district of what was once William Maillard. And this bipartisan pair worked on this, and with the support of a fine Secretary of the Interior, said, we can do this. And this park grew. In its first iteration, it was 34,000 acres. And today, as you've heard, it's 82,000. And we got some incremental things along the way. The other thing about this park is that what it has accomplished in terms of habitat, when you put it together with parklands and open space that are next to it. Point Reyes is a national park, touches Golden Gate for 10 miles in the Olema Valley. The San Francisco watershed lands are within this park because an aide of Philip Burton's warned that watershed lands were being cannibalized across the country. And you can imagine a mayor coming into office and seeing some debt, say, you know, we'll sell a few hundred acres of the watershed land. You can get a big reduction. And so we had all of this coming together to make a place that has actually about 175,000 acres, and I may be a little short in that number, that runs for 60 miles and allows for habitat for the plants and for the wildlife that we come to a national park to enjoy. The other thing I want to say about this looking to the future is that in the past, this land, the views that you are looking out at beyond me, they look the same now as they did 50 years ago. The chain link fences are down. The horticulture and lawns, where there are lawns, look the same. But what I expect is that 50 years from now, we're going to have, thanks to the Park Service and to the wonderful advocates that we have, many of whom I know sitting in this audience, who have worked on one aspect of the park or another, whether planning or growing plants in a nursery or helping in some way, being a docent, in some way helped this park to flourish. And then, of course, there are the park partners, and you've had a good talk on them. There's nothing like the park partners that this park has developed. So I want to thank all of you who have participated in this, and I want to look to 50 years from now and say they're going to have had a really good time here. Thanks. I need a hand.
Thank you so much, Amy. Our next speaker is Congressman Jared Huffman.
What a beautiful day and what a wonderful occasion. I am Congressman Jared Huffman. I represent the northern part of Phil Burton's old congressional district, Marin County. And, you know, the residents of Marin County have a very special appreciation for the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. It provides adventure, inspiration, a lot of natural beauty. It's just part and parcel of our quality of life in Marin, from Stinson Beach to Tennessee Valley. Marin residents love this park, and many of them make a trip to this park part of their daily routines. This park's our backyard. The Park Service and its partners are our neighbors in Marin County. And of course, there's a wonderful history of environmental stewardship in Marin County. Amy just talked about some of that original vision that made all of this possible. A lot of it came out of Marin County, a lot of the advocacy and the vision, and part of it was defeating a really intrusive and I think ill-conceived development called Marincello that would have very much changed the landscape that you're looking out across the bay at right now. So we have a lot to appreciate and be thankful for. Certainly Amy Myers and many others who made this all possible. And instead of that, we have recreation and environmental values in this park like almost no other place in America. And visitors have appreciated that for decades. I'm just here to tell you how proud I am to work in partnership with the National Park Service to make GGNRA a park for the people and by the people, and hopefully for many, many decades to come, something that will continue to be that. Because of all of that hard work of the staff and partners that are gathered here today, future generations are going to be able to enjoy this park for the next 50 years and beyond. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Congressman Huffman. It is my honor to turn the microphone over to Speaker Nancy Pelosi.
Good morning, everyone. What an honor to be here, standing with Philip, gazing down on us to see how we have lived up to the dream and the legislation that he put forward. So many of our spokespersons talked about the importance of the outside mobilization, the groups that came together to make all of this possible, this 50th anniversary, to celebrate something so grand, so grand. Eric, thank you, because the interpretation that children receive from our park, from you in their own language, but in other languages as well, is our purpose for the children. Thank you, Eric. Amy, well, that's an applause line for Eric. Thank you. When Chuck talked about his family coming here all those years ago and what the Park Service meant on the way here, I also am thinking of his wife, Paula, who was here, who was a member of the Presidio Trust when all of this, much of this was being developed. So it's a family affair for you today with the YMCA. We've honored you that way. Now we honor both of you for your contribution. And speaking of family, I'm glad that my daughter Christine is here because we have been coming to this park with Christine, with my son Paul, but with my children over time, as well as grandchildren now. Everyone looks forward to that. So for many of us, it's a family affair. Thank you very much to Chris for the work of the Golden Gate National Parks Conservancy. Thank you for your leadership. And in acknowledging you, I want to acknowledge Mark Buell, whose role there and on the board of the Presidio. He's personification of working together. Laura, thank you for your leadership. Jean, thank you for yours as the president of the CEO of the Presidio Trust. And to Amy Meyer, the godmother of all of this. She and Ed Wayburn taught us a lot about parks and dreams and the rest. They also taught us to say yes right from the start because you'll save yourself a lot of time. Right, Amy? Amy knows what I mean. And not only does she think macro, micro, every step of the way, making sure what we did and what decisions were made were consistent with the dream that she and Ed Wayburn had. You can't, I mean, what a blessing they were and how they channeled others who were part of this as well, as was acknowledged by my colleague, Jared Hoffman from Marin County, that there were intellectual resources there who had a vision about parks. Thank you, Jared, for your leadership. Continues in that tradition, not only fits comfortably there, but takes the lead as a member of the Natural Resources Committee, in which Phil served as a subcommittee chair. So does Jared. What is it, water, oceans, and wildlife. What more is there under the sun? Plus, he's on the Infrastructure Committee, which is very important in all this. Plus, he's on the Special Select Committee for the Saving the Planet. He'll be going to Egypt to do just that the day after the election. So he is a leader in the Congress. When we want to know what to do about water or this or that or parks and the rest, we always say, what does Jared think? So again, not only fitting comfortably, but taking the lead. We're blessed by your leadership, Jared Hoffman. So let me just say a few things in history, because so much has been said already. But just to put this perspective, when President Thomas Jefferson, now I'm not going for 200 years, was president, he initiated the first infrastructure initiative for our country. It was called the Gallatin Initiative, and it was to build a Erie Canal, the Cumberland Road, all the things that leading into our country as the country expanded under his leadership. 100 years later, in honor of that, Teddy Roosevelt formed his own infrastructure initiative. It was called the National Park Service. The National Park Service. And what a blessing to our country. Yellowstone. Well, you know what an environmentalist he was, an outdoorsman he was. And he saw that that was really important to prioritize. What a blessing. And now we're here as part of the National Park Service, and keeping with the bipartisan nature of it, when in fact the Philip Burton did his masterful legislation, inspired by Dr. Wayburn and Amy and others as well, it was a big deal. Not many people in Congress believed in urban parks at the time. You may not realize this, but they're like, well, wait a minute, we have, Yellowstone and this and that. Those are national parks. But he had to convince that urban parks, and in his words, let me just read his words, and I won't read all of his words because some of them are not suitable for. He said, parks for the people, where the people are. Where the people are. And so when he put into that bill, which many people didn't notice or see the implication of it all, that when the Presidio is in excess of the needs of the Defense Department, it will become part of the National Park Service. That was a very big deal. So I want to recognize Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, who was a member from Marin at the time, but also our senator in the course of this legislation, for making sure that anybody who needed to be convinced understood that that was the law of the land. This could not be sold. It could not be permitted for construction and this or that. And here we are today. Of the Presidio, just to say as part of this, but it's not just about the Presidio, it's about the whole thing. And the Presidio was a military base, as you know. But it was said of the Presidio is that a shot was never fired in anger. Whether it was the Spanish, the Mexicans, U.S., never fired in anger. And we use that as our model as we were building the GGNRA to something bigger, but also making the Presidio part of it. So it was always bipartisan. 50 years ago tomorrow is when Richard Nixon signed the GGNRA legislation. As was mentioned, Bill Maillard and Phil Burton were the leaders in all of that. And Philip, I think there's some things around the statute that you may find useful, but it was a fight. It was a fight, but nonetheless bipartisan in the House, the Senate, and signed by the President. And that was true then when we were doing the Presidio, that we wanted it to be bipartisan. We have honored Jack Murtha and Ralph Regula, Democrat and Republican, for the funds that they poured into this, whether it was for the Presidio, Fort Baker, and the rest, which some of you have been around long enough to remember what Fort Baker recently was and now is. But again, a vision, a plan, the money to get it done. But the beauty of it all is that with those resources to clean up what the military had done here, they were good stewards, but nonetheless they were the military, and there was a lot of cleanup that had to be done to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars for the Presidio alone. But think of this place, the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Every single word of it so important. When our soldiers came back from fighting in the Pacific, this is what they saw. When immigrants from Asia and other places came into our country, this is what they saw. When our children come to the park, this is what we want them to take pride in. When my kids were little, we would go over, and that's just at the beginning of GGNRA, Mrs. Twilliger. Does anybody remember Mrs. Twilliger? She taught us all that everything in nature is connected. The recognition of that by so many of you, without the outside mobilization, this would not have happened. Philip knew that. Philip Burton knew that. Another day we'll have some stories about Phil that, like the first time he came, when looking at all of this and what was going to be in legislation, they asked him, do you want to get out of the car and walk around? No. Just tell me what legislation you need. He was a master legislator, but he understood beauty. The fact is, what all of you have done, and I thank so many of you for the role that you have played, and of course our Amy, the godmother, and Ed Wayburn, you have created a work of art. Just the way this happened was so creative, a model to the rest of the country on how they could go from post to park or from other, not necessarily a post, but other facilities to a park, and done so in a way that no shots were fired in anger, but all of it building bipartisanship and peace and calm for the children, so that when they come here, and this is the most important part. Some of us were together at the Tunnel Tops dedication several weeks ago, to see how drawing children here to play, to recreate, and to learn about nature, so important, especially now when nature is so under threat by some denial and delay as to what we need to do to save the planet for the children. The children now can take ownership of the vision, of the knowledge, and of the plan to save the planet for even future generations. I'll close by joining Steve. Thank you so much for acknowledging our early, David mentioned at the beginning of his remarks about the early people here, our Native American community here, but in the rest of San Francisco as well. They were such good stewards of the land. We owe it to them to be learn from their model and be good stewards of the land. And whether he realized it or not, when he started out in politics, Phil Burton and his brother John were great stewards of the land, and so are all of you. Thank you so much for what you have done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Speaker Pelosi. Thank you so much. Such an honor to have you here today. And thank you to all the speakers who've shared their time with us today. It's been very rich. Before we conclude, I would like to give a couple of shout-outs here. First of all, to Charlie and Angela and Denise and Michelle and all of their teams, all of their staff, everybody who's been part of the anniversary team. Thank you so much for all of the hard work and all the tremendous time you put into this day, and for all the activities that we have planned for the rest of the year, for this next year as we step into it. I also want to shout out to the San Francisco grounds crew, specifically, who did so much prep and site work in the area for this event today. Thank you so much, Rez and team, for everything that you've done, and everybody who's been involved in the logistics today. Today's the kickoff. This is the beginning of our 50th year, and there will be a lot more to come in the next several months. So do please stay tuned as we continue to celebrate for this coming year. And our last activity of the morning, what we'd like to do is we'd like to do a little bit of a flag presentation led by Chris Leonards. We're going to do a little flag presentation right up here. All the speakers, if we can stand. And the flag is, we're going to come up in front of this here.
Oh, in front. Okay.
Yep.
Do I need to?
You can do this.
Susan and Lisa
Yeah.
for their interpretation.
Yes. Thank you for your interpretation today, both of you.
There it is.
Waiting for the flag here.
Well, while our speakers gather, we are sharing a moment. We are sharing a moment, and what you have just heard is a sequence of moments that were so important in the establishment of this park. And the 50th anniversary is a moment that we want to present a special flag designed for and by parks employees and the Parks Conservancy, so that the park can fly this flag every day of its 50th year and fly it proudly, recognizing features of the park and the idea that parks are for all forever. So shall we unfurl it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Grab a corner, gang. Here we go. Speaker, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, here.
Nice. I'm going to go on your left. It's not a meeting. I mean, it's not an event unless a flag hits someone in the face.
Okay. Good. Here, David.
We're going to go stage right, stage left, stage other.
You guys, there you go.
Okay. Duck under here, folks. Let's get everybody under. There's your flag. Congratulations and happy 50th anniversary. Okay, now in front of the flag for a photo.
Right behind everyone. There we go. That's good. All right, and unfurling, and we're unfurling. That was the comic relief part of the presentation. Okay, and we're unfurling. There we go. And I'll take that. You can grab the bottom corner here. Garrett, grab that bottom corner. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day.